stock market crashed in 1929, American life suffered greatly. Herbert Hoover, though he made many attempts to help bring order to the panic associated with the Depression, gained much of the blame to where the economy was at. After the election of 1932, Franklin Delano Roosevelt became president, and he had high hopes with the creation of the New Deal. At this point in time, 4 million were unemployed by 1930, and up to 12 million by 1932. Not only were people unemployed, but they were starving. They didn't have enough income to feed themselves or their family. Although the first New Deal was mainly about banking reform, it had a few aspects of unemployment relief. The second New Deal, however, is when the unemployment and hunger relief really started to kick in. When the Federal Emergency Relief Administration was inaugurated in 1933, it had 3 goals. 1, to give adequate relief to those in need, 2, to give people work who needed it, and 3, to diversify relief programs further. The FERA was set to become a program that would help all people in need rather than just those who fit the qualifications. In the beginning, the FERA was to distribute $500 million in federal funds to state agencies to go towards grants, not loans. This plan also put 15 million people to work. Work Given tried to go along with previous lines of work to make it easier on the work. Within the FERA was the CWA, the Civil Works Administration, which then turned into the Emergency Work Relief Program. The CWA alone put 4 million people back to work. The Emergency Work Relief Program then took it upon itself to take the programs from the previous CWA and perfect them to better benefit the people. From this came the Federal Surplus Corporation, which gave commodities to all of the people in need, including farmers who had too much food and the common folk who had too little. The Self-Help Cooperative Program, which helped cooperatives produce their own goods, barter to get needed ones, and help start new cooperatives. While the FERA itself ended in 1935, a short 2 years after it was created, these programs became the byproducts and lived to become other programs. It enacted in June 1933 and had 2 key parts. The first was to establish regulations on working standards and to make unions legal. It also had a regulation on oil prices to keep those equal across the U.S. The second was to make public jobs to be given to people who actually needed jobs. Construction happened mostly on public places such as schools, hospitals, waste treatment plants, the Hoover Dam, and the Triborough Bridge in New York. A big part of union rights that the NIRA contributed to was the United Mine Workers of America, which took their numbers from 100,000 to 400,000. The NIRA led to the creation of the PWA and the NRA. When the NIRA created PWA in 1935, it gave $3.3 billion for the job. CCCs, the Civilian Conservation Corps, were a very popular and successful program during the Great Depression. Like the WPA, the CCCs didn't employ many women, so it mainly helped with the employment of men. It employed well over 2.5 million men and only 8,000 women. These men were from ages 18 to 25 and were sent away to camps run by the military that helped with reforestation, flood control, and road and construction, as well as many other projects. This program started in 1933, and it started to push for more unemployment relief programs. The WPA Works Progress Administration Program was authorized by Congress in 1935 and was the first major attempt to lower the outrageously high unemployment rates. This program reduced unemployment by employing over 3 million people a year. These workers were employed by doing socially useful projects such as building bridges, roads, and airports. Some of their funding even went to employing actors, writers, artists, and musicians. The problem with this program is it didn't help with the unemployment rates of women. Only one family member could be employed with this program, and priority went to the men. Later in this program, 13% of workers were women, but that was still low. While it didn't employ many women, it did employ many African Americans. The Depression hit African Americans really hard, and the WPA not only employed them, but built hospitals, schools, and housing in black neighborhoods.
Some criticize the WPA for employing workers to do lazy work and paying them for doing nothing. That wasn't the case at all. The WPA contributed a lot to lowering the unemployment rate. It also gave money for families to pay for the food that they needed to survive.
The NYA, National Youth Administration, did projects similar to the WPA, except it employed youth from ages 16 to 25. The majority of these youth were students, and this helped them pay for school and buy food so they wouldn't starve. Overall, the Works Progress Administration, the National Youth Administration, the Civilian Conservation Corps, the Federal Emergency Relief Administration, and the National Industrial Recovery Act helped drop unemployment rates from 25% in 1933 to 9% in 1936. They stayed under 10% until the end of 1940. Then, when the U.S. entered World War II in 1941, it dropped to less than 1%. Therefore, the New Deal programs helped mitigate unemployment by reducing it by 16%, but World War II ultimately ended it by dropping it to less than 1%.